Space Invaders. The fixed shooter has the player control a laser cannon that operates at the bottom of the map using several blocks as cover, while alien ranks move closer to the player, firing back occasionally. Destroying these aliens earns you points. The more you destroy, the higher the score. Originally released in 1978 by the Japanese company Taito, later licensed to the Midway division of Bally for overseas distribution. This game was a response to Atari's very own Breakout from 1976. The designer Tomohiro Nishikado spent more than a year designing, testing, and building the game from scratch, having to create many of the custom tools himself and the programming to do so. Drawing creative inspiration from Star Wars, The War of the Worlds, Gunfight, and Space Battleship Yamato, Nishikado added features to the game that had yet to be explored by other titles, such as reacting enemy AI or even a simple game over screen, which up until that point had not been explored by any of the other major titles. Particularly, he also focused a lot of his time on audio as he felt music complemented his work without hindering the gameplay experience. Despite building much of the hardware himself, Nishikado found great difficulties in programming much of his work together. His own control program board was not initially powerful enough to run the game in full color as intended, so he had to completely pull apart and reassess his own situation. He later discovered that the processor could render each keyframe of animation graphics faster if there were fewer aliens on the actual screen. Since the aliens moved during each keyframe, this would have the unintended effect of causing the remaining programs to speed up faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until... Nishikado decided that this would be not a bug, but a key feature of the game to add to the challenge of the overall mission. When Nishikado had finished his game, it was received with a mixed response. While many of his colleagues were impressed with the amount of time and effort that had been placed into the game, his bosses predicted that the game would have low sales. Because of this, many arcade owners would actually frequently refuse to even have the game in their own parlors. Pachinko parlors and bowling alleys loved it, so much that they cleared spaces just to fit more machines. By the end of 1978, Taito had ordered, built, and delivered over 100,000 machines with a gross profit of $670 million. By 1979, this had grown to 300,000 machines, with a gross profit of over $2 billion. Taito was struggling to even meet the demand, where they had to have another 100,000 machines ready by the end of 1979. In order to do this, they had to increase their monthly production from 10,000 arcade machines to 30,000 arcade machines a month in order to even meet this demand. By the end of 1979, there were 400,000 machines in Japan alone, and an additional 750,000 machines spread across Europe and America alike, remaining the top arcade game for 3 years in a row from 1980, 1981, and 1982, earning Taito over $4 billion in total. Space Invaders left a lasting impact on popular culture. The game's influence extended into music, art, and even fashion, igniting a golden age of coin-operated gaming, symbolizing the era's fascination with technology. Musical expert Andrew Shertman had this to say.
1. It was thus the first time that sound effects and music were superimposed to form a rich sonic landscape. Not only do players receive feedback related directly to their actions through sound effects, they also receive stimulus in a more subtle, non-interactive fashion through music. 2. That seemingly pedestrian 4-note loop might stir us in the most primitive of ways, but that it stirs us at all is worthy of note. By demonstrating that game sound could be more than a simple tune to fill the silence, Space Invaders moved video game music closer to the realm of art. 3. Over the years, analogous strategies of variation would be applied to pitch, rhythm, dynamics, form, and a host of other parameters, all with the goal of accommodating the nonlinear aspect of video games. 4. At the deepest of conceptual levels, one would be hard-pressed to find an arcade game as influential to the early history of video game music as Space Invaders. Its role as a harbinger of the fundamental techniques that would come to shape the industry remains more or less unchallenged. And its blockbuster success ensured the adoption of those innovations by the industry at large. Andrew Shartman, Thought Catalog, 2013.